Sleep paralysis is a devastating condition. I was 7 when I first had sleep paralysis. My mother tucked me in that night. I could remember the citrus fragrance of her perfume. Her scent would always comfort me. After she tucked me in, I quickly drifted off to sleep. The night seemed quiet, but the peaceful atmosphere in my bedroom didn't last. I woke up around midnight. A smothering sweat drenched my little body. I couldn't move my arms and legs. I could only move my eyes and my lips. It took my eyes some time to adjust to the thick darkness in my room. While my eyes were struggling to see, that's when I heard it. I could hear it snorting. A dreadful feeling came over me when I heard the inhuman sound. I could see someone standing in my closet after my eyes adjusted. It peeked at me from behind my closet door. It stood there for a minute snorting at me. When it lurched out of my closet, I finally saw its full body shape. Its elongated arms stretched out like tree branches. It was tall, but it had a feminine shape. It looked like a deformed 7-foot-tall naked woman. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. It felt like something paralyzed my vocal cords. After this shadowy figure stepped out of my closet, it stood in the corner of my room with its arms out. It would release a guttural snorting sound every few minutes. The sound was sickening. It reminded me of someone hawking and spitting on the ground. I could see this figure. I'm listening to the horrible noises it's making while I'm paralyzed. The moonlight came in through my bedroom window. It illuminated a part of the shadow woman's arm. Her skin looked like mud. It didn't look burnt, just darker than dirt. All I could see was her one arm stretched out across my bedroom wall, bathed in the moonlight. My mind kept trying to figure out what she was. I thought I was looking at a demon for the first time. Or possibly the devil. Movement occurred, but not from me. I still couldn't move my body, no matter how hard I tried. It felt like invisible hands were holding my arms and legs down. The movement came from the shadow woman. I watched in horror as she made a step toward the foot of my bed. She would take one step and then she'd hesitate for a minute before taking her next step. Her awkward hesitation sent more chills through my body than her measured baby steps. I knew she was going to kill me if I didn't move. Frustration tortured me just as bad as my fear. I didn't know what this thing was or why it was in my bedroom. I didn't know what it wanted. The scary stories that my dad told me about the boogeyman came back to me. So I had this naked creature creeping toward me while I'm thinking about my dad's story and how he told me the boogeyman captures children at night and they never come back. Thanks a lot, Dad. I wanted to move so badly. I wanted to scream. It felt like I was fighting my body. The voice in my mind yelled at my body, telling it to move. The dark woman mocked me with her hesitant steps. She inched closer and closer to the foot of my bed with her arms stretched wide open. A crazy thought went through my head. Since I couldn't move my body, I thought maybe my feelings would be numb. I assumed the creature would viciously attack me, but at least I wouldn't feel the pain. I could see her long fingernails pointing out at me, and I knew those fingernails would be the first thing to dig into my body. No pain. Please, no pain. This is what I kept telling myself. Just be calm, Miranda. When the monster grabs you, you won't feel it. It won't hurt. Your body is numb, so you won't feel a thing. Tears were in my eyes while I was telling myself this. I wanted my mom to save me. I wanted to see my mom's face, and I wanted to smell her perfume. I wanted to call out to my dad. My dad told me to never be afraid of anything, and that's what I tried to do. Time was running out for me. My urge to move was so strong that I started imagining that I could move my arms and legs. I thought I could move my arm, but it was just an hallucination. This was torture. Why was this happening to me? I was just a kid. I just turned 7 and now I was going to die on the day after my birthday? I'll never go to high school and meet new friends. I'll never graduate from college. I'll never get married. I'll never find out what it's like to be a mom. The best thing I could do was close my eyes. I didn't want to see it attack me. I just buried my eyelids in my tears. I said a prayer that my mother taught me. My lips and my voice were still useless, so I had to say the prayer in my head. The prayer repeated in my mind. My mom and dad taught me to believe in God. I needed God to save me. My mother always told me I was God's child and He had His angels watching over me. I wanted His angels to save me that night, and I didn't see them. A demon was lurking itself toward my bed, and God was just gonna sit there and watch this demon kill His child? My young mind couldn't understand what was happening. I thought the dark figure was a demon. A little girl who knew for sure she would die in her bed. More chills traveled up and down my spine when I opened my eyes to see the giant shadow woman standing over the foot of my bed. She changed her position. Before I closed my eyes, her arms were spread out as if she wanted to hug me. When I opened my eyes, she was standing motionless in front of me with her long finger over her lips. She was telling me not to make a sound. I couldn't make a sound anyway, so when I saw her holding her finger to her lips, it didn't matter to me. My situation turned upside down when I heard something else. Something unexpected happened. There was evil in my room. But the evil that stepped into my room was not the shadow woman. I remembered hearing the news reports of missing children in the town. My mom wouldn't let me out of her sight whenever we would go to the store. There were reports of a crazed man in a clown costume going around abducting children. The police were searching for him. They couldn't find him, but they found his aftermath. They found 2 missing children dead in a wooded area. As a child, I couldn't completely comprehend the danger. When you're a child, you want to play with your friends. I wanted to play with the other little girls in the neighborhood. But my mom would always keep me close to her side. On my birthday, I went to an amusement park, but I couldn't enjoy myself because I would go from being in my mom's arms to being in my dad's arms, constantly being carried around the park like a doll. I hated this smothering, overprotective behavior from my mother. She passed her paranoia to my father, who would normally allow freedom in my playtime. My childhood freedom ended for a little while because of this child-killing bastard. Somehow the killer entered our home through the basement window. He stayed hidden in our home for 2 days. This is how he broke into other people's homes, and he would hack into alarm systems and shut them off. Most of the missing children news reports involved children being taken from their homes in the dead of night without their parents even knowing what happened. A few days later, they'd find out that their child's naked body was found in a nearby pond or in a dumpster. Mothers and fathers were losing their babies to a middle-aged, 6'5", 250-pound psychopath in a clown outfit. We didn't know that the psychopath clown broke into our home 2 days ago and was hiding in the basement. I was the only child, so he thought one little girl in the house would be easy prey. He picked the wrong house that night. I heard him creeping down the hallway right outside my bedroom door. His footsteps were quiet but clumsy. The hardwood floor in the hall would always creak. My bedroom door creaked open and I saw this tall shadow, standing hunched over in my doorway. I remembered hearing my pounding heart. My eyes shifted between the killer clown and the dark shadow woman. I couldn't believe I was seeing these 2 nightmarish figures standing in my bedroom. One figure was evil, while the other was good. I saw his clown makeup. He had a red-painted nose, and he wore a pair of sunglasses over his chalky white face. I could see he had a beard. He had on a pink afro wig, and he was shirtless. He had an opposing physique, like a wrestler. I also saw a massive tattoo of a wolf's face on his chest. The large butcher knife he clutched in his right hand immediately caught my eyes. Even in the darkness, I could see the knife's serrated blade gleaming. He was so big that he blocked out my doorway. I didn't know what to do. There was nothing I could do but just lay there, helpless. I started imagining that I could scream for help. My imaginations were cruel. I hated my body for not moving. I hated my voice for not letting me scream. He knew I was awake because he spoke to me. "Hi there, little princess. I'm your new friend. Your mommy went away and she asked me to take care of you." When he said my mom went away, my heart sunk deep into my chest. As he got closer to my bed, I could see something dripping off the knife, and I didn't want to know what it was. When the child killer spoke to me, his voice didn't fit his body. His voice sounded androgynous. It had a deceivingly calm feminine quality. It's terrifying to see a mountainous man in clown makeup talk softly down to you through a teenage girl's voice. I kept thinking about Pennywise from the movie It. But imagine Pennywise if he was shirtless with the body of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I closed my eyes again when I saw the killer towering over my bed, getting ready to bring his butcher knife down on my face. I expected to feel cold, sharp steel slice through my nose, but none of that happened. I shut my eyes, but I couldn't keep them shut for long. The child killer had so much of my attention that I forgot about the shadow woman who was still standing at the foot of my bed. I remembered hearing the man scream out a curse word, and then I heard a snap. I could still make out through the darkness what was happening. I saw the killer clown's arm hanging in another direction. I'll never forget his guttural, blood-curdling scream that pierced my ears. His scream echoed throughout our home. I thought that even the neighborhood could hear him. What happened next made me almost pass out from shock. I saw the dark shadow woman lifting the child killer by his throat. She hurled him into a wall, and a penetrating thud shook my bedroom. I kept hearing the man begging for his life, and he sounded so pathetic. He kept screaming out, "What are you? Please don't kill me, ma'am." But the dark woman had no mercy on him. She bludgeoned him with his knife. I watched her break both of his legs. She punched him in his chest so hard that I heard the bones in his chest cave in. I heard his rib cage cracking. After a few minutes, his verbal pleading became whimpering moans of agony. I didn't know that you could break bones in the human body in so many ways. After twisting the bones around in his arms and shattering the bones in his knees, I watched the dark woman raise the child killer off his feet again. She held him over her head before shoving the butcher knife into his throat and nailing him to the wall, literally. I never blinked as I stared at what happened to the killer. I almost felt sorry for the sick son of a bitch. No, not really. The dark lady made him pay for all the children he abducted, and she made him pay for his attempt to kill me. After the violence ended in my bedroom, I watched as the shadow woman moved toward my bed. She stuck out her arms again while moving toward me. It looked like she was floating in slow motion. My heart was still pounding, even when I felt her clawed fingers breezing through my hair. When she touched my face, I could smell a familiar fragrance. It was that citrus aroma from my mother's perfume. I couldn't understand why the shadow figure smelled like my mom. I didn't understand it until later. The shadow woman hovered over me. Her lips stroked my forehead. She caressed my face for a few minutes, and then she vanished when I heard my father's panicked voice coming from downstairs. I didn't want to believe that I saw blood on the killer's knife, but it was blood. It was my mother's blood. That asshole stabbed my mother to death right before he made his way up the stairs toward my bedroom. He left my mother's body lying in the kitchen. My father stepped out of the house to get a few things at the store. When he came back home an hour later, he found my mom's body lying in a pool of blood. Her lavender, sleeveless nightgown was soaked in red. My father cried out when he saw her body. I heard him running up the steps, crying out my name. When he bolted into my room, I was already in his arms before he could switch on my bedroom light. He saw the man's body nailed to my wall and he lost his breath. I told him what happened and what I saw. He couldn't believe it, but he had no choice. He knew that a little girl didn't have the strength to nail a 250-pound man to a wall. My father called the police, and when they arrived, they asked him a few questions. The police asked me some questions too, and they gave me some candy. I told them everything. Like my father, they stared at me. A policewoman caressed my face and she said, "It's okay, sweetie. You just had a traumatic experience. Who you saw in your bedroom was just a good Samaritan wearing a dark costume." None of the police officers believed that I saw a dark shadow woman. They all believed that my trauma caused me to hallucinate. They even told me I might have seen my father killing the man, and I told them that my father wasn't in the house. I heard him telling my mother that he was going to the store. I heard him kiss my mom before leaving the house. Those cops couldn't believe my story. They had tons of sympathy for me. But I wanted my mother more than their sympathy. I missed my mother and I couldn't stop thinking about her fragrance. I found the perfume she wore while moving some boxes around in my attic. That sweet fragrance took me back to that night. I believe the dark figure I saw in my bedroom that night was my mother. A dead version of her. I'm 36 years old now and I think about my mom every day. I got married to a kind and beautiful man and we had a son. My little boy is 5 years old and he has his mom's hazelnut eyes and his daddy's lips and dimples. I try to be an excellent mother and I'm very protective over my little one, just like my mother was protective over me. Every night I tuck my son into bed and I read him a bedtime story. One night I told him about what happened to his mom when she was 7 years old. He looked scared after I told him the story. My son is afraid of the dark, but I told him not to worry. I told him that a mother's love and protection can reach beyond death. I told him I'd always be there to protect him. I told my baby not to be frightened if he sees a dark, shadowy woman standing in the corner of his bedroom. I told him she'll watch over him while he sleeps. I also told him not to panic if he wakes up suddenly, unable to move his body. Sleep paralysis is scary at first, but I told my baby that his paralysis will be a sign, letting him know that the shadow woman is there to protect him from the things that go bump in the night. There was one thing I didn't tell my little boy. I didn't tell him that the dark, shadowy woman standing in the corner of his bedroom might be his mommy. If she dies the way her mother did. As you check your mail, you notice a letter that makes you stop in your tracks. Written on the front of the envelope is your full name with a heart around it. You slide your finger under the seal and rip open the envelope. You pull out the card inside and your breath stops in your throat. Written in cursive on the front it reads, "I found you." Your head jolts up and your eyes dart from left to right, looking for movement. Before you can even open the card, you sprint back to your house and lock the door. You press your back up against the door and sit down. How had he found you? They had said that it would be next to impossible. You feel the hot tears streaming down your face. From moving across the country, leaving behind your family, changing everything all for nothing. He had found you. You slowly open the letter. You wipe the tears out of your eyes and scan the paper. The letter reads, "You thought you could hide from me, didn't you? Thought that I'd never get you back. We are meant to be together forever. I'll see you soon. From your one true love." Your breathing gets heavy and you let the letter slip out of your hands and onto the tile below. As the paper turns in the air, you see more text on the back. P.S. Don't bother trying to leave town again. I have eyes everywhere. You slowly reach into your pocket and pull out your phone. You open your contacts to Uncle Reynolds. You let the dial tone ring, and on the other end you hear a voice. "Hello?" Reynolds says. "He found me again. He sent a letter. He's in town. He's going to take me. He said if I try to skip town again he'll know because he has eyes everywhere. I need help." You say, frantically, "You're going to be okay. We're going to get you out of there safe," and Reynolds says before the line cuts out. You hear another voice come through, and just the sound of their breathing sends chills down your spine. "Hey, baby. So I'm guessing you got my letter?" He taunts. You pull your legs to your chest and bite your lip to keep from screaming. "Not gonna talk to me today, huh? Well, that's unfortunate. Then I guess I'll do all the talking. Once I find you, we're going to go to a cabin up in the mountains, and that's where we'll stay. Forever, my darling. I don't quite understand why you try to run from me. I know you still love me. I can't wait to see you again. Maybe now I'll get to see my little bun in the oven. I'll see you soon." He chuckles and the line picks back up to Reynolds. "Are you okay? Does he have you? We're going to get you out of there." "What happened?" Reynolds asks. You suck a deep breath in and once again can feel the tears streaming down your face. You reiterate what occurred in the past few minutes to Reynolds, and you try to calm yourself down. "You are going to be okay. Once we find him, he'll be taken into custody and he won't be able to hurt you ever again. He said he's going to take my baby." You blurt out through your sobs. "You are going to be okay. We'll be in town tomorrow morning. Just stay inside for the night and wait until we come to get you. Stay safe," Reynolds says again. He hangs up. You slowly stand up and go throughout the small house, locking all the doors and windows, and drawing the blinds so that nothing can be seen from outside. You go to the kitchen and quickly grab some snacks and scurry off to your room. You set up a place for you to sleep in your closet and place a baseball bat beside your pillow. You lay down and pull the blankets up to your chin and try to calm your nerves. It will all be okay in the morning. Uncle Reynolds will save you and he'll never be able to find you again. You reassure yourself. You lock the closet door and eventually you fall asleep. You wake up to the neighbor's rooster's loud crowing next door. You open your phone to hundreds of messages from an unknown number. They read, "I love you. Good night. Good morning, love. I can't wait to see how much you've grown." They're from him. You put your hands on your stomach and sigh softly. You feel a buzz and reach for one of the granola bars you'd brought with you the night before. You slowly stand up to stretch and open the door. You walk into the kitchen and open the fridge to pull up some pasta you'd cooked a few nights ago. You place it in the microwave and start a check of the house. You squint to look out the peephole of the front door, but there's tape over it. You run back to the kitchen, grab your pasta and hurry back to the closet. You open your phone again. It's 9:30. You hear a knock at the front door and begin to stand up. You feel relieved. Uncle Reynolds is here, and this will all be over. You'll finally get to see your parents again, and everything will go back to the way it was. Something stops you as you hear more knocking. When Uncle Reynolds came to check in on you, he always texted you that he was at the house. You open your messages with Uncle Reynolds. The last message you'd received from him had been before you moved to this town. Your heart sinks and your blood runs cold. That's not Uncle Reynolds. You swiftly lock the door and pull the baseball bat closer to you. You open your contacts and see a voicemail from Reynolds. You turn the volume to 1 and listen to his voice. Hey. This is Uncle Reynolds, and I just wanted to say that we'll be there at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Sleep well, he states. You close the voicemail and check the time again. It's 9:33. You can feel your heart beating faster in your chest. You hear glass shattering and a voice echoing throughout the house. Come out, darling. I know you're here. Make this simple and leave your little hiding spot so we can get to the cabin quickly, he ordered. You freeze as you hear his boots stomping on the kitchen tile. You quickly message Reynolds, but the message won't go through. Your tears begin to fall onto your phone screen, and all you can think about is how you'll never see your family again. He'll take you to his cabin and you'll never be able to leave. You hear cabinet doors closing loudly in the kitchen. You try to send the message again, but the texts refuse to deliver. It's 9:38. The stomping of his boots seems to have gotten closer as you hear them against the creaky floor of the bathroom near the front room. You've never been very religious, but you begin to pray as his yelling gets louder. You hear him open the door to the nursery, and his yelling calms for a moment as he opens all the drawers, nooks, and crannies of the room. You hear him right outside your bedroom door, and everything in your body is keeping you from screaming for help. You hear him trying to open the door to no avail. You hear him kicking it until finally the wood gives way and the door opens. You see the shadow of his feet in the crack under the door. You see pillows and blankets being tossed to the floor along with glass picture frames that shatter the minute they hit the ground. Glass shards fly everywhere, including under the door where they come to a stop by your feet. You hear him begin to yell and swear in frustration. You hear him walking around the room until finally, he stops in front of the closet. He chuckles. I found you, darling. Why don't you just come on out and play, huh? You hear him begin to kick the door, trying desperately to get in. Somewhere nearby, you hear a loud commotion. What now? He grunts. You hear multiple pairs of boots getting closer as he continues kicking at the door. The kicking stops and you hear multiple voices screaming and yelling. You hear a battering ram at the closet door and cover your face so splinters won't hit you. The door flies open and light streams into the small closet. You move your hands away from your face to see a tall, black man standing before you. He squats down to you and places his hand on your shoulder. I'm Detective Adams. We have him in custody. You are okay. He smiles at you. You look behind him and see at least 15 officers around the room gathering broken items and placing them into clear plastic bags. You take his hand and he helps you to stand. Behind him is Uncle Reynolds. He pulls you against him and you feel tears of pure joy streaming down your face as he hugs you tightly. You pull apart and see that he too is crying. We have him in the back of one of the high-security vans, and he's going to be escorted to prison where he'll stay for a long time. You're safe now. You'll be able to go back home and you'll be released from witness protection. You'll no longer have to call me Uncle Reynolds. He states, "You will always be Uncle Reynolds to me." Thank you, Agent. You smile as he escorts you to his car outside. You breathe a sigh of relief as it sets in that you'll never have to see Christian again. You are free. Hours before the birds began their song, a baker whistled to himself as he unlocked the front door of his shop. The air was crisp and cool, but only because it was so early. These days, one could reasonably expect the temperatures to soar to the upper 70s in January. It was weird, the baker admitted, but he was never a fan of shoveling snow anyway. Today, he shoveled flour into massive mixing bowls. First, he would start the bread, then he would mix up some scones. They were his specialty, and he offered a broad assortment of flavors for clamoring customers. Blueberry, lemon poppy seed, pumpkin, chocolate chip, and morning glory. Thyme with goat cheese, sun-dried tomato, and bacon cheddar chive for the savory crowd. He reserved one batch for his breakfast. Cranberry orange zest with a sweet glaze today. These scones would have an extra scoop of cranberries and a few whimsical sprinkles on top just for pizzazz. The baker's mouth watered in anticipation. He swished some black coffee through his teeth while he waited for the oven. It filled the bakery with the intoxicating aroma of yeasty bread. Even after all these years, the baker was not immune to the lure of fresh bread. His waistline was proof. Leaning against the counter, the baker paused his work to munch his breakfast and scroll through his phone. An alarmist aunt posted an offensive political meme. His ex-wife posted some inspirational drivel punctuated with #blessed. His brother-in-law shared an adorable video of his twin daughters playing in the sprinkler. The baker checked the date stamp and saw that the video was taken just 2 days ago. If it was hot enough for swimsuits in January, he worried what summer would have in store. Better buy a stronger air conditioner. The baker flipped to a news website and took a large bite of the crumbly cranberry scone. He brushed bits off his belly as he clicked a particularly sensationalist headline. Argentinian zombies kill millions. Zombies, as it turned out, was a bit of an overstatement, and although the zombies were Argentinian citizens, the disease didn't even originate in Argentina. They were just victims. Leave it to the media to mislead the public, thought the baker. Some scientists in Antarctica discovered a new species of extremophilic algae that wreaked havoc on human brains. According to the article, those exposed to the algae experienced extremely high blood pressure, fevers, confusion, rage, and if left unchecked, they committed acts of violence. The article continued, a plane with a sample of the Antarctican algae landed in Argentina in mid-January and, the baker assumed, got loose somehow. He didn't worry. Argentina was very far away, and he doubted the accuracy of the news report anyway. The baker finished the scone in one bite. When the starry black sky gave way to the fuzzy indigo of pre-dawn, the baker set to work filling the display cases. Baguettes, croissants, danishes, and pastries were arranged to entice. The baskets of scones overflowed. A tapping at the glass. The baker looked up to see an elderly gentleman rapping on the glass door with an umbrella. The baker recognized the man as a regular customer who frequently shared amusing stories from his world travels. He always carried the umbrella, rain or shine. It had become something of a trademark, and the man often punctuated especially titillating tales with a jab of the umbrella handle. He had become one of his favorite customers, and the baker knew this man was hoping for the freshest morning glory scone. The baker pointed to the closed sign hanging on the door and shrugged apologetically. He was a punctual man and would unlock the doors at exactly 6 o'clock. The early bird narrowed his eyes. His cheeks reddened. He banged the umbrella against the glass with more force. The baker shook his head emphatically and mouthed the word closed. He indicated an imaginary wristwatch and held up 6 fingers. The message was clear. The elderly man roared in frustration and smashed his fists against the glass. "Scones," he screamed, spraying spittle on the door. He threw himself against the door and slapped his palms against the brick wall. "Scones." He pounded until his hands came back looking like raw steaks. Underneath his terror, the baker felt a little tickle of pride that his goods could inspire such passion. He fumbled with his cell phone until he was able to control his hands and dial for emergency services. "Hey, friend," said a youthful voice. The baker couldn't see who was coming down the street, but he saw an assortment of dogs straining at their leashes and barking ferociously. "Do you need a doctor, friend?" A moment later, the dog walker appeared as she approached the man. She was athletic, but small of stature, and wore a purple NYU hoodie. Her face was calm and kind, but she shortened the dog's leashes. The elderly man turned his dilated eyes towards the student. He bared his teeth. Raised blood vessels were visible on his vermilion face even from the back of the bakery. He spat at her and brandished the umbrella. The dog walker's face hardened. She reached into her back pocket. The baker could see a spiky-haired paperboy riding his bicycle down the hilly street. He wore the same wild-eyed, red-faced expression of the man who wanted scones. When the youth spotted the squabble on the street, he picked up speed and steered his bicycle straight for them, screeching at the top of his lungs. The baker stood frozen behind the display case. His cell phone fell from his hand as a tinny voice said, "911, what's your emergency?" The bicycle crashed into the net of dog leashes and tangled there. The growling dogs yelped in surprise and their master dropped the leads. They tore off down the street in terror, still tethered together. The kid fell off his bicycle and the newspapers went flying. He leapt to his feet with amazing speed and produced a switchblade. He screamed again as he swiped at the man and the student in equal measure. The man stabbed at the paperboy with his umbrella and the student sprayed a can of mace. The skirmish moved down the street and away from the bakery, but the baker could hear it through the glass. Screaming, scuffling, shrieking, slashing, squelching. Silence. The baker stood motionless and lightheaded. Suddenly remembering his task, he picked up his cell phone from the floor and spoke to the patient emergency operator. Before he could finish describing the scene, the sound of smashing glass dropped him to the floor. Dozens of people, all fire and fury, hurled rocks through the plate glass window. The crowd screeched and attacked each other with as much enthusiasm as they directed at the baker barely hidden within. Some of the people carried weapons and others used found objects. One smashed another's head through the bakery display case. Bread and pastries spilled out onto the slippery red floor. Dawning sunlight streamed through the jagged hole where the window used to be. It seemed Argentina wasn't quite so far away after all. The baker crawled on hands and knees to the closet that kept cleaning supplies. He kicked the door shut behind him, leaving him in utter darkness. He shoved brooms and mops out of the way. The clawing horde in the front of his store was getting closer. The baker could hear them spitting and shouting, smashing and slashing. He ran his hands along the floorboards, up the walls, behind the paneling. Was it still there after all these years? The baker only stashed it there to keep it away from his ex-wife, then he forgot about it. The baker's flour-covered hands bumped against steel. He ran his hands along the object, testing it, remembering it, coming to terms with it. It couldn't be true, could it? Wasn't this whole mess just a big scare tactic made up by the media? A hoax? The hoax slammed against the door of the supply closet. Fingernails scratched and boots kicked. Exhaling a long breath, the baker stood up in the dark, cracked open the door, and leveled the shotgun.